Welcome to Mystery College Podcast. Today we'll be discussing the soul mirror as described by Franz Barton, but we're also going to be taking a comparative look at some different systems that have their own soul mirror tradition. Folks who are not aware, the soul mirror is an exercise in Hermetics and certain European schools of thought where one looks and analyzes themselves. They look at their positive qualities, their negative qualities, and then what they do, which is a different twist to say normal psychological self-analyzation, is you assign a attribute to them, a tattva, a element, if you will, such as water, air, fire, earth. And in this call, we're going to be discussing not only this methodology, but also some other methodologies that are used in other schools of thought, in Shaivism, other Vedic schools, and also maybe even some psychological Jungian schools of thought. We'll be seeing and filling in some information, some details that can help this process for folks who are going through Franz Barton's Initiation in Hermetics, for viewers, listeners who are more into Shaivism or other pan-Indian traditions, and so much more. Or if you're just someone who just likes psychoanalysts and you're looking to improve yourself, this podcast is going to prove very valuable. So welcome to the show, Shreeram. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
So a little disclaimer before we begin. Two of our co-hosts, if you will, in Orga, we're Dr. Ram and I are currently experiencing some inclement weather. So this will probably be the first podcast which we will experience a certain degree of disturbance, not spiritual or physical, mind you, but weather disturbances, and that's beyond our power. So thank you for your patience, thank you for your understanding, and I hope that, as with all the podcasts we've had so far with Dr. Ananda Krishnan, we're gonna have a blast. So thank you everyone for coming, and let's roll.
Absolutely. In case there's any outages, we have s'mores and hot chocolate available to anyone. So
absolutely.
Okay, great. So Alex, so do you have something to say about this concept from your practices?
Well, Jake covered pretty much about the bare basics of the soul mirror. So what we're interested in knowing for our audience right now is, are there any analogs of Franz Barton's soul mirror system within your Kal Bhairav tradition? So
Okay. I cannot exactly say it as a soul mirror because the concept of soul, I think Barton is talking about soul from a Christian perspective. So that is why people will say, I have a soul, my soul needs to be saved. All these kind of sentences come from, I possess a soul. But we don't look at soul like that. The soul is the I consciousness. Okay. So I am the soul. I is the soul. That's the thing. So soul means it is the self in our tradition. And some people tend to correlate it to Atman. Again, the Western soul and Atman are two different things. And Atman is a Vedantic thought. Shaivites like to call it as Purna Aham and Alpa Aham. Okay, Purna Aham is the supreme subjective awareness or the supreme subject, and Alpa Aham is the supreme subject when he is veiled by the 5 tattvas of Maya, or the 5 obscurations or conjugas of Maya. He is called as the Alpaham, or the lesser I.
In plain speak, it's the soul experiencing things through the fetters of reality.
Exactly. So the fetters are something, as he mentioned, the fetters are basically self-imposed ones. So for an infinite being to appear as a finite, or in order to create, it needs to become finite. So it is kind of like a self-imposed limitation so that he can manifest to the reality. So that is the concept. So looking at this, see, soul mirror is something which is designed to refine the character in a manner. So certain negative aspects have been correlated to certain elements due to elemental imbalance. So first thing, in order to understand that there is something wrong or something needs to be refined, we should be able to passively analyze ourselves, whether it is our thoughts, whether our emotions or reactions to external events or internal events, whatever be the case. We should first develop the ability to passively analyze these, observe these thoughts and emotions. Okay, so this is one of the purpose that the first two exercises serve us. that passive observation of thoughts, and then concentrating on a single thought, etc., which we covered in the last session. So once we are able to analyze our thoughts in a passive, detached manner, for example, somebody is coming to me and criticizing. You see, this is my experience. Okay, during our PG, our post graduation training, so residents will have to choose a thesis topic. Okay, thesis topic based on some research they have to do for the next 2 years. That is the ultimatum. So when the pages used to present these theses or their abstracts or whatever the synopsis, etc., I used to ask them questions, and I used to do a lot of contradictions with their statements. Sometimes it turns aggressive. So my you know what, I was always aggressive when it came to those things. So then people started to tell me, Shreeram, you should not be aggressive like this. There is a way to express these things. You might be right, but people will get offended. Then I started thinking about this. I cannot understand whether I am aggressive or not. So I took their advice, and then I started to think, okay, fine. What they might say, what they are saying might be true. Then I started to refine myself. So that is that. So if they are telling me that I'm aggressive, and then I don't have a rationale to think about it, okay, without any judgment, I should take it. I should not think that they are right. I should not come to a conclusion that they are wrong. Instead, I should be able to observe it as such. So whenever we are facing this situation, we should, or else what will happen when we are finding some sort of flaw within us, we will try to justify it, and then we won't be able to identify it. This is something that I also faced in my life during my initial stages of training. So in order to objectify it properly, we should have an ability to observe these thoughts and emotions passively. Are you getting the point? If somebody is telling me that you lost your temper there, you should not have lost your temper, then I will start justifying it. I lost my temper because he started it. This kind of blame game will come into the play. Are you getting the point?
It's a very human thing, just to be fair.
So we need to overcome this first. Then only we can talk about the white mirror or the black mirror or the refinement of the self, etc. So this is accomplished by prolonged practices of the step 1 and step 2. So are you getting the point here? So that is why this is very, very important. We should be able to observe our thoughts and emotions passively without getting attached to that. Okay, number 1. Number 2, Shaivism looks at these emotions, whatever be that, these lesser amount of emotions, as a byproduct of Maya. So Maya has Raga, Vidya, Kala, Kala, and Niyati is also there. So Vidya here refers to what to say, limited perception or limited knowledge. This is not omniscient, this is limited. Okay, Raga and Dvesha is together. Niyati is there. We will talk about that later. So whenever we are talking about Raga, we will talk about Raga and Dvesha. Attachment and aversion, not detachment, aversion. So this Raga Tattva is very much important for the Shiva Tattva to manifest itself as manifest itself into the gross 5 elements, gross tattvas like Prithvi, Agasha, Jala, etc. Okay, Agasha, Teja, Jala. So those 5 elements. So once the 5 elements manifests, the entire cosmos becomes physicalized. It reaches an exalted state at that point of time. Then the physical reality comes into manifestation. So in order to make sure that he goes on into this process and he manifests as the ultimate reality or the ultimate physical reality, this Raga Tattva is very, very important. Okay, because it keeps him anchored into his mission to manifest as the physical world. Okay, understood? So but due to this Raga and Dvesha, what happens when the physical reality manifests in a limited manner? The whatever I talked about earlier, the emotions, whether they are positive or negative, they also come into play here in a lesser human like us, in lesser I like us. So that is why Raga and Dvesha are considered to be a paramount factor, or what to say,
cornerstone of the human condition, or
yes,
I would dare say it's the cornerstone of all living things. We desire certain things, we are averse to certain things.
Exactly. So whenever I'm mentioning Purusha, I have mentioned that Purusha is the Shiva who is afflicted with these 5 conjugas. I have mentioned it like that in my works. So this is how Shaivites see it. So there are many methods. Okay, there are many methods. One of the method that I have mentioned is Paba Purusha Krama. Okay, Paba Purusha Krama. I will come to that. Another one is we worship two deities named Ashwa Aruda, and another one is Sampat Pradavairavi. They are mainly worshipped in Srividya tradition. Okay, so for example, Devi is depicted in a form where she is holding nose, nose in
Yes.
one hand, and in another hand she will have an elephant goat.
It's
Okay,
similar to the weaponry that Ganesha holds.
yeah,
He puts his-
exactly. Ganesh also holds the same weapon, but we tend to confuse the elephant goat with axe. It's not axe; it's elephant goat.
no, it's an elephant goat.
Goat, yeah.
Pashuram, I think is the name. Or no, I'm sorry, it's not. It's not him. What?
Uh, it's used to, you know what these mahots, elephant mahots
Yes,
used to.
yes. It was
use
used to poke at elephants.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
were still used for labor.
So these two symbols represent the raga and dvesha. Are you getting the point? So these are personified by the forms Ashwaruda and Sambat Pradabhairavi. So we will worship them, or we will connect with their mantras in order to overcome these raga and dvesha. That is one thing. That is one way of doing it. Then comes the Pava Purusha Krama. So Pava Purusha Krama, how I am mentioning it is that um, we will meditate on the Supreme Lord as our Guru to guide us into this. Okay. Then we will think of a certain um, what to say, internal flow within us. For example, jealousy, greed, anger, or hot temper. Any of this, we will think about that, and we will personify it in the form of some sort of monster or a demon. Okay, and then we will visualize it within ourselves, especially in the belly area or in the abdominal area, and then we will use all the five elements to eliminate it. All the five elements to eliminate it. Okay, we will burn it with fire, and we will blow it away, blow the ashes away with air, and we will wash it away with water. So we will use all the elements. Okay, all the elements to purify this process. So whenever this soul mirror comes into play, whether it is white or the black mirror, we will assign these flaws in the character to a certain element. So we are using all the five elements to do this inner refinement technique. Okay, all the five elements. Obviously, why we are using that? We are using the elements to purify it. We consider that all the elements are composed of all the other four. Okay, because Akasha, from Akasha comes the air element. Okay, in our tradition, air element. Baden differs it. Is talking about fire as the second element, but we consider Akasha, then air. Okay, Vayu. After the Vayu Tattva, it comes Teja Tattva or the Agni Mahabhuta, that is fire. After the Teja, we will have water, that is Jala or up. After up, the final Tattva is Prithvi. So we will go in that order.
It's interesting if you consider it from the perspective, and individuals who are into chemistry will be surprised when they connect the dots. So air feeds fire, and fire produces steam. Steam produces moisture. Moisture precipitates and creates condensation. Condensation creates sediment. Sediment becomes earth, and the ashes that come from the fire also produce earth. So it's a cyclical thing.
So this explanation is not only from a chemistry perspective. Even Tarka Sangraha is a classical treatise. Okay, Tarka Sangraha. It basically talks about Sankhya and Vaisheshika darshanas. Those are some of the oldest epistemologies in India. So they are talking about this correlation. Exactly what you told right now. They have talked about this. Okay. I don't think you might have read Tarka Sangraha, but what I was said.
Oh, I have, but I've at least read Heidegger's epistemology, but that hardly counts.
Okay, so so this is how we look at the Paba Purusha Krama. So there are other techniques as well. We will come to that later. So you have anything similar in the practices that you come across?
Well, in the form of Shaivism that I have been taught, there is a similar method, except it is more akin to Vajrayana Buddhist practice, wherein you confront the aspects of yourself that you deny. But there is no way for an individual to confront the aspects of themselves without first understanding the true nature of themselves. And when they say the true nature, completely stripped of any preconceived notions that you may have of the self. Because the interesting thing about human psychology is that, first and foremost, like all human instincts, it is self-preserving. Very rarely will you ever encounter a human psychology that is so critical of the self that it becomes self-deprecating. The only instances wherein you encounter such occurrences or manifestations is if an individual is severely traumatized or severely depressed. And the answer to that is simple. Their concept of the preservation of self has been eroded so thoroughly by trauma that they see nothing of the self. That's also not a good thing, because without a self to place a foothold upon, you can also be, led back and forth by nearly everything. Anything that pretends to assuage your trauma will be the thing that guides you, rather than you creating a willful, willing, cognizant action. Now, in the practice that I was taught, which I'm not sure if it was influenced by Vajrayana Buddhism, because, I mean, to be perfectly fair, Shaiva Siddhanta is influenced by Vajrayana Buddhism, or not. Actually, Shaiva Siddhanta influenced Vajrayana Buddhism, as controversial as that may sound.
Okay. Let me get back to you. Okay.
Yeah.
When you try to say Shaiva Siddhanta, are you talking about the non-dual Shaivism or the Siddhanta Shaivism, which is now more practiced in South?
It's the dualistic form of Shaivism, not the
okay. Siddhanta Shaivism. Okay.
Yes. So when it, to be perfectly fair, it influenced some aspects of Vajrayana Buddhism due to the routes between India and Tibet a long time ago. Anyway, I digress. First, one has to encounter the truest form of the self. And the best way to encounter the truest form of the self is to be alone with oneself. That's a period of isolation where you meditate not upon any aspects of deity, not upon any transcendental forms, not upon any divine names of God, aka mantrams or what have you, but only on the self. So it's a lengthy, tedious, and I will say very scarring process, where you not only have to enlist or to take note of every positive aspect of yourself, but also every negative aspect of yourself. And it starts from there. And if you compare this to most other religions across the world, even philosophy, mind you, the cornerstone of Western philosophy is know thyself. That's essentially what it is. Ram is currently experiencing technical difficulties. He'll be back with us momentarily, so I'm gonna have to take the floor for now. So going back to where I was, one of the cornerstones of philosophy is the knowledge of the self. Without proper knowledge of the self, there can be no true understanding. He's back, folks. From out of the darkness comes the light, and that light is Ram. Jai Ram. And so, yeah, the understanding of the self creates a praxis upon which you are able to criticize the self. And one of the problems of most modern Western ideologies is their lack of criticism of the self. I mean, they do honestly say, you know what? Oh, society already criticizes me a lot. The world already criticizes me a lot. The criticism of the world is one thing. It is only a very fleeting, passing, one-sided thing. There is no better critic for the self than the self, because the self knows every bit of bull S-word that you can levy at anybody, especially when you're the one doing the throwing of the stones. So once you have a firm ground on understanding yourself, you begin to deconstruct your understanding of yourself. And once you deconstruct your understanding of yourself, you place that in direct correlation to your understanding of God. So God is understood as all-pervading, ever-present, immanent, perfectly, perfectly encompassing every facet of reality. So this is interesting, because when we compare Barden's Black Mirror theory or Black Mirror practice versus more Eastern oriented practices. Barden focuses on removing the gross aspects, of the self, and focused on the divine properties or the transcendental properties. The East is funny in that the East does not create a distinction between what is a good God and what is an evil God, or what is a good human and what is an evil human. Everything is part and parcel of it. So, and to cut the long story short, I will give a short example. I once struggled with addiction. I'm not going to go into detail over exactly what form, but there's that. And so one of the most difficult aspects to accept about that part of an individual, of my personhood, is more often than not, an individual who suffers with addiction will say, "Oh, I do this because reasons. I do this because I want to run away. I do this because of peer pressure. I do this because of bad influences, bad choices, and whatnot." Very rarely will you ever say, "I do this because at the time it felt good. At the time I needed it. At the time I wanted it. At the time I actively desired it." That's not something that a lot of people are willing to work with or accept. And then here's the harder bit. To say to yourself, "I did these things not because I was a bad person. I didn't do these things because I was a good person turned bad, or a bad person trying to do good. I did these things because I am a human, plain and simple. And humans will what humans do." So it's a tough exercise. And I can understand why Barden said that it is integral to the proper cultivation of magic to have this aspect of exercise in your daily regular practice. Dr. Ram, if you will take the floor again, please. Thank you.
Yeah. So what you said is true. One, we need to accept who we are. That's the first step. Okay. Am I audible to you guys? Because
yes,
the connection
absolutely.
is fluctuating. Okay. So we need to accept who we are. That's the first step. Okay. Without that, we cannot recognize these things. And we should judge when we are talking about blackness. This is good. This I think you might be familiar with. So one second. You know what? The connection is fluctuating. I'm losing.
Now
So can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Now
Yeah,
it will be much
next
more better, I guess. The powers back to my face also on. Okay. Yeah. So now it's fine, right?
Yep.
So sorry for that. As we have mentioned earlier, there will be some problems with the podcast because the weather is also very bad. So where I'm staying in India, I'm from Kerala. Somebody asked me whether I was from Kerala last time. Yes, I am from Kerala, and we are having red alert where I'm living right now. And I'm from a district named Wayanad. It has, you know what, it gets flooded every time. So yeah, coming back to the point. We need to understand that these are all part of ourselves. Again, I would like to quote Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. He has mentioned, Devi Esha Gunamai Mama Maya Durasteha Mameham Hi Prapadyante. Like that he's mentioning. So Maya is also part of me. So this is also what I am. We should not judge that I am a bad person due to this, or we should not justify our these actions as well, like Alex has said, and I also told in the beginning of the talks. So once we understand this, then only we can objectify them. So objectification or objectifying these flaws or aspects is very, very important. First we need to identify, and then we have to objectify these things, and then we should work on refining them or vanquishing. I don't want to say banishing, vanquishing or something. We can say that
Eastern dichotomy. Yes, that's
yeah,
very
yeah. So we just have to work on refining ourselves. That's all. So we cannot be a person who never gets angry. That's the ultimate. Something goes wrong, we get angry, because I have turned angry many times during you know what, OT works and all. So the interns will be there. I used to get angry, and they used to complain initially to my you know what postgrad, you know, the person in charge of the postgraduate section and all, and to my HOD as well. I have had many complaints that Shreeram is scolding us. Shreeram sir scolds us unnecessarily. He's very angry. So this is the ultimate truth. This will happen, but we need to control them. We should not lose ourselves in that anger. That's
I want to go back later on to this anecdote of yours, because there's an interesting practice in Tibetan philosophy which I think
okay.
you might enjoy, but that's for a later in the podcast. Do remind me, because you will enjoy this one.
Okay, so anyway, so many things have happened whenever we, you know what, these instruments needs to be in a sterile environment, right? So sometimes the interns might not know it. So we teach them. That's the truth. But whenever we are having a procedure, they are not following these aseptic precautions. This happens in every hospital. Whoever is seeing this, they will know this. Okay, so I turn angry that time. I get angry, or when our HOD or our chief surgeon comes to do a procedure and none of these things are ready, or if the pre-medications are not loaded, I turn angry. Okay, so this happens, and I have had many such incidents. But you know what? I don't know whether I had any other choice other than getting angry during those days or raising.
It doesn't have to be, a bad thing or a negative thing. One very lovely anecdote that my mentor from when I was still with the International Society for Krishna Consciousness once taught me was, there are some things that we must learn first before we can unlearn them, and there are some things that we must possess before we can let them go. And one of the problems I would opine when it comes to the dichotomy of westernized traditions is we tend to deal in absolutes. I'm going to quote Star Wars here. Pardon me, folks. So Obi-Wan Kenobi says only a Sith deals in absolutes. But when Obi-Wan said only Sith deals in absolutes, that is also an absolute. So the Jedi is being a hypocrite here. Anyway, I digress. There are aspects of ourselves that we have to first accept before we can let them go. But the problem with the way that a lot of people engage in spirituality is they're looking for perfection. They're looking for, oh, I am perpetually at bliss. I am perpetually calm. I'm perpetually benevolent. I'm all good, all good. There is no such thing as all good. Not even God is all good. Because, the problem, consider this philosophically. One of the most common arguments that agnostics and or atheists have against the existence of God is, if God is real, why does suffering exist? Because they want no suffering. But will it actually be life in the absence of suffering? Will it actually be existence in the absence of death? Can't be so. There always has to be both of these things at the same time. Now, there is something called a surplus of suffering, too much. There is such a thing that's called injustice. That's called terror, horror. Because, war is horror. Poverty is horror. But you can't have a utopia where there is no such thing. There will be no progress. It creates stagnation. And so, in order for us to evolve spiritually, regardless of whatever practice it is that we have right here and now, we have to set aside the idea that in order for me to progress spiritually, I have to be a perpetually perfect bodhisattva individual with a rainbow body that cannot be befuddled by the ins and outs of the world. No, be befuddled by the ins and outs of the world. You're hungry, eat. You're thirsty, drink. You're horny, knock yourself out. You're angry, be angry. Because either way, even if the Jedi say only the Sith deal in absolutes, they're being hypocrites, because that's also an absolute.
Exactly. So what I would like to tell you is, you have been mentioning about Vajrayana Buddhism as well. So so I would like to bring two things here. One of the aspect about training with Shaivism is, during those days there was a Gurukula tradition. So you go with the guru, or your own teacher will be in the lineage maybe your grandfather or somebody else, your uncle, your great uncle, etc. So that time what happens is they know how the student is, what are the flaws that the student faces, and they will actively help. Maybe they will be living together, so they can train the person by themselves in person, so they will be able to help the student overcome his flaws, number one. Okay, but now it is not like that. Okay, now when it comes to these transmissions or certain deities, Shaivism also understands that this suffering comes from ahida, or ahida means inappropriate sannigarsha. Sannigarsha can be talked as a union. Okay, so inappropriate union of sense organs, whether it is the organs of action or the organs of, what the five organs of senses. Okay, so Pancha Jnanendriya and Pancha Karmendriya, anything which is inappropriately united with it. So Indriyartha we say. So what is
essentially
Indriyartha?
disharmony.
Yeah, disharmony. Exactly. Disharmony is a much more better word. We call it as sannigarsha. Sannigarsha is harmony. So whatever be the case. So this disharmonious union with, what to say? 1 second.
It's
So
fun
I'm
when
losing power here.
is
Yeah.
you
So
see
this,
from the darkness to the
okay, so this disharmonious union with the sense organs, or the objective of the senses. Indriyartha means objective of the senses, causes suffering. So the suffering, the jealousy, greed, or whatever the six aspects, that is the kama, krodha, lobha, mada, malsarya, moha, etc., all comes from the from these limited objective perception of the sense organs. That is why in Srividya tradition again, or even in Kali tradition, this deity is there named Kurukula. Okay, you might know Kurukula, right?
interesting that you brought out Kurukula. Kurukula also exists in the
Kurukula.
Vajrayana tradition because they got that from the
Yeah.
Katha tradition.
So Kurukula has been mentioned as a deity or a goddess who is used to, bewitch people, whether it is a woman or a man or other animals or any sort of. This is how traditionally Kurukula is depicted, but that is not what Kurukula is. So Kuru means sense organs. So from the word Kuru, only Kurukshetra came. That Kurukshetra Yuddha, Abhinavagupta mentions that yeah, Kurukshetra is nothing but Kshetra is temple, Kuru is organs of senses and organs of action. That is the Pancha Jnanendriya and Karmendriya. It resides within the body. So it is an internal warfare that is going on. This is how Abhinavagupta mentions it. So coming back to the point here, Kuru means sense organs. Kulla means one who controls the senses. Are you getting a point? So Kurukula sadhana is basically done in order to control our lesser emotions, to gain control of the indriyarthas and the indriyas, or the organs of action and organs of senses, in order to transcend these emotions. Okay, so this is one way, and there are many other deities. For example, Baglamukhi comes under this Dashamaha Vidya. People say that Baglamukhi is used to do Shatru Stambhana. Shatru Stambhana means to freeze an enemy. So again, Baglamukhi sadhana is used to uproot these lesser emotions from us, to freeze the lesser emotions like anger or jealousy, greed, whatever be it. You can correlate it with the 7 deadly sins, or you can correlate it with the Kama, Krodha, Lobha, aspects said in our tradition. So this is the ultimate aspect, to overcome these emotions or to transcend these emotions. So yeah.
Interestingly, this universality once again of the similitude in the attempts at practices that transcend most religious doctrines. I mean, consider how Barden's own prerequisite for the analysis of the self through his black mirror, white mirror exercises are paralleled in ancient Egyptian thought, wherein when an individual supposedly dies and goes to the underworld or the afterlife, the heart of the individual is weighed against the feather of truth. And so in the act of weighing the heart or the ka of the individual against the feather of truth or the ma'at, you willingly confess to the scales that are weighing your heart, these are the things that I have done. And I suppose that individuals who are already familiar with magical practice already know that the Decalogos, the 10 Commandments, are based off of these negative confessions, so to speak, that you state when your heart is being weighed against the scale of truth. So the negative confessions are: I have not dishonored my parents, I have not stolen, I have not killed, I have not borne false witness, I have not desired my friend's spouse, I have not desired the property of others, I have not committed an untruth, I have not been discourteous to my elders. These are some of the myriad negative confessions. All of this can be found in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and there are similitudes to this practice to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, in which, while there is no weighing of the heart and against a feather of truth, you do meditate upon a deistic concept of Padmasambhava, wherein you regurgitate the foul aspects of yourself, that is essentially driving out those aspects of yourself that are negative, bearing it all before the emanation of the Bodhisattva, so that the Bodhisattva can judge you. And throughout all of these, there is this element, again, of willfulness, that we ourselves desire to bring this out of us, to lay it out in the open. And this transcends, all religious practice, even in the Hindu system, whether that be dualistic, as is mine, or non-dualistic, as is Dr. Ram's. There is the element of the involvement of the self, because you can't begin this sort of practice unless you are really actively there, involved with yourself.
Okay, so since it has come to this, I will explain one more concept. So in my work, I have mentioned triadic manifestation of Bhairava as subject, object, and cognition. So I have said that Goratara or Apara, a form of Kali, Goratara Kali, is been attributed to object, okay, objective reality. So she is also the master of illusions. She also represents the Maya Tattva in a certain manner. In the sense, she represents everything that is material in nature, that is physical in nature, that has finally materialized or which has an immanent existence. Okay, she represents everything that comes under the first 24 tattvas, from Prithvi to Prakriti. Okay, she is also the creator of that disunity, disharmony. She is the one who makes us feel that the object is completely independent from the subject. Okay, so in certain schools of thought, these kind of deities or these kind of aspects are not revered, but Shaivites take it differently. We call forth her in order to refine these emotions, refine these aspects within ourselves. Okay, so that is why Goratara is usually worshipped. Okay, I have not mentioned her. I have mentioned how to meditate on her, and I have mentioned how to meditate on the Triga Mandala and all in the book, but I have not gone in depth into the mantric practices of these deities. Maybe a work in the future will address these things as well. So Goratara, she represents the object in the triadic manifestation. So this is one thing. So rituals conducted to her are aimed to overcome these lesser emotions, so to refine the black mirror. Okay, and after mentioning the Papa Purusha Krama, and before going into the Tattvic meditation, I have mentioned a certain practice where we are embodying the aspects of Paradevi. Okay, Para, that is the Agora, the subjectivity in the triadic manifestation. So she is the one who reconciles the subject and object, or in the state of Agora, the subject and object are one and same. There is no distinction between the subject and object. She is the one who creates harmony. She is the one who destroys the illusions. She is the one who helps us to recognize who we are, or the inherent divinity within ourselves. So once we see, it is a kind of possession that takes place in that exercise. I have mentioned that meditation on the para, but the possession is not exactly as the one mentioned by Crowley or in the traditional Wudon system. Nothing like that. We are just embodying the aspects of the deity. So we will visualize ourselves and then as an empty space, okay, or a hollow glass material or something like that, and then we will visualize a fire engulfing us while chanting the parabija, that is sauhu. Okay, sauhu. So when we are chanting this or when we are vibrating this within ourselves, this is purifying ourselves and it is elevating our consciousness to a state where the distinction of subject and object is completely disappears. So this is the first step. So we need to understand the importance of inner refinement, the black mirror and the white mirror of the soul, as per Barden, or the Papa Purusha Krama, and refining these lower emotions. So these are all important before getting into the practice with the tattvas and the phonemes. These are very, very important, because if we skip this part, when we are doing the higher levels of meditation, we will come into contact with these aspects of ourselves. Okay, they will manifest as demons within our psyche, and we won't be able to overcome them at that point of time. Okay, this is one of the problems that I have seen in certain schools of anti-cosmic Satanism in the West, or in satanic schools like theistic satanic schools in the West. They don't address this problem. So they will directly call upon Goetic kings, or they will directly call upon the rulers of the Cliffothic tree. They will try to communicate with the Chorazon or Adramelech or Asmodeus. And what happens is they will be further plunged into their own illusions. And you know what? Their life seems to become much more horrible or much more desperate than before once they come into contact with these beings or these energies. So they can produce a negative influence within ourselves and within our life.
Because they're convinced, they're convinced in their and I suppose that I am not at liberty to criticize any practice, mind you, but at least from a practical vantage point, theistic Satanism is an attempt at a rebellious exercise against pre-established Judeo-Christian norms. So they, in their philosophy, is the good is bad and the bad is good. That's why they do that, and that's not.
Exactly, the acausal light, they consider something called as an acausal light, which is like the Ain itself. And from the Ain Sophor, the demiurge came into existence, and it manifested as Keter and later concretized as Malkuth.
I will disagree in that respect, though. The manifestation of the demiurge.
So they consider this Simsum, that is a limited light, which helps to manifest the cosmos as something evil. So the entire point of the alternate tree, that is the tree of Clifford or the tree of death, is considered to be the Luciferian light, or the Samael's manifestation, which as a rebellion against this tyrannical demiurge. So this is how they see it. So the conflict exists within the philosophy itself. So when we contrast to Shaivism, when we consider Maya also as an aspect of God, there is no dichotomy existing here. There is no duality. So you're getting the point, right? So that is why we worship Gauratara, and meditation on Gauratara and her mantra and doing pujas or rituals externally as well as internally is very, very important in our practice. Yeah, so that's for now. I will get into other things as well. So you have anything similar to this?
Yeah, no, actually, I have one better. Instead of comparing it to religious practices, of which we can create a lot of comparison points. A little bit more practical. Let's go about it in a little bit more practical way. So one of the key elements of Barden's mirror exercises or mirror concepts is that it is similar to Carl Jung's concept of the working with the shadow self. Interestingly enough, Jung only focuses on, once again, the negative aspects of the self rather than the entirety of the self, as a cohesive whole, working with every aspect of the self, both good and bad. But to keep this in plain speak, and to use the analogy of the worshipping of, the source of illusion. Consider how in the majority of the world today, we have become a highly materialistic, capitalistic, hedonistic society. Now, a lot of individuals who engage in spirituality will be of the opinion that, oh no, this is a reflection of Kali Yuga. I heard that all the time when I was still part of ISKCON. Oh, this is Kali Yuga. That is Kali Yuga. Oh my goodness. Okay, so Kali Yuga has been, it's come and passed according to like some sources and some individuals who are responsible or who are experts at Jyotisha. But to be perfectly fair, we have been blathering on about the end times, the end of the world, the destruction of everything as we know it since humankind first stepped into this world. And it is the reason for that is because we are so very, very adamant to not be destroyed. We want to stay here. We want to be part of this world because this is where all the fun is. Because we don't know for certain, even regardless of whatever religion tells you the afterlife has, nobody has concrete proof that the afterlife has a PlayStation 5. Okay? Nobody is sure that in the afterlife there is a gigantic strip club with 47 virgins. No, nobody knows. Nobody is sure that in the afterlife you get to hang out with whoever. So we are very adamant in staying in this life regardless of our desire to transcend the life. Okay? So practically speaking, when we engage in hedonism, when we engage in materialism, when we engage in the typical aspects that define modern human society as it is, we engage at it in a very guilty manner. And that's why a lot of religions are set in place to create, whatever catharsis that they can. There's confession for one, for some, there's pilgrimages in others, there's purification for others. We cannot live with the fact that we do bad things. But in order to properly worship illusion, one must understand that illusion is part and parcel of life. And so I propose a more practical alternative, that we live more honestly with ourselves and with each other. Because and this, anybody can prove this, okay? The more hyper-religious or highly spiritual an individual is, the more they have shit that they don't tell you. The more that they have aspects of themselves that are dark, disturbed, possibly destructive, that they tend to hide. To use a gross analogy, and I'm sorry for our female audiences. Actually, you know what? Let's be fair. Regardless of the sex and or the gender, the more religiously preoccupied an individual is, the freakier they are in bed. And there's a reason for that. They keep a lot of the things, they keep their freak pent up, hidden. And so it has to manifest somewhere else. And the reason for this is because we don't live authentically. We engage with life in a way that when we drink, we excuse it as, I'm stressed. Oh, I'm hanging out with friends. Oh, I this and that and this and that. Instead of just saying, you know what, I'm gonna drink today because I feel like doing it. Oh, I find this individual attractive. I'm gonna approach this individual and solicit them for sex because I want to. If they say yes, great. If they say no, great. No, it always has something to do with, we are worshiping illusion by creating illusion. We are not worshiping illusion by facing illusion. And so we have to be more honest with ourselves. If you engage in life as is, without pretenses, then you will find that there is very little that life has to offer which is tempting to you, because you've already done every bit of temptation that there is. And so you can then refocus those energies, those thoughts, those perspectives into the things that can reshape and redefine your reality. Because you don't need to spend time worrying about, am I attractive or unattractive? Can I get laid or not get laid? Can I get this kind of money or that kind of? You're done. You're through. So now you're like, okay, what's wrong with me? My dad never loved me. He hated my guts. but that's okay because he's dead and I'm still here. Something like that. Don't take this as a personal confession. I don't have parents. I'm Batman.
Okay, so when it comes to this, when you said be good, so there is a question of morality. What is morality? What is ethics here? So what is dharma? So whenever these things keep on changing from time to time, that is one thing. Okay, these things keep on changing from time to time. But at the current situation, how I explain this, or how I have tamed myself, or how I trained myself. So treat your neighbors how you want to be treated. Simple. Goes back to, I'm paraphrasing it. Jesus said it. I don't know.
Jesus did,
So
Buddha did, Zoroaster did.
yeah,
All of them did.
yeah. Everyone did. So if you understand this, do you want yourself getting hurt, physically abused, mentally abused, verbally abused? No. Do the same. Do you want to be treated nicely by others? Do the same. If you think some, so okay, if you've done a mistake, do you want to be yelled at by others, or aggressively criticized, or criticized in a constructive manner? So think about this. Do the same to the others. So don't yell at others. Simple. So what I'm saying is,
But you know,
treat others how you
there's
want.
a caveat though. There's a caveat. Don't expect others to treat you the way you treat them, because that's just human nature. Like if you do good, don't expect
Yeah,
good in return.
yeah, that I understand. But try to uh, do good. So again, you don't have to expect others to treat you the same way that you want to be treated. Okay, but at least you can be the person who treats them well, right? Are you getting the
Alternatively,
point?
yeah. But alternatively, and I'm gonna play
Yeah.
devil's advocate here. If you're gonna treat
Obviously,
someone bad,
see,
be honest about
this is for TLC, because it's very difficult. I do understand that, because there are ups and downs in our life, there, but we can try our best. We can try
it. Yeah,
our best in this.
definitely.
So that's that. And I wanted to tell you one more practice. So this just popped up here. You know what? You know Tara Devi, right?
Yeah,
Tara.
green
In
Tara, red Tara, white Tara. Yeah,
yeah,
there's a lot of
there are
Taras. I
Taras,
know.
but in you know what? That is China Charakam, because from China it came. So something like that. So we also have our own specific system of Tara, Tara Devi. It comes under Kalikula. Then Tara Kula is there. That's a different one. It's okay. She's not especially worshipped in Srikashaivism, but I'm talking about Tara from a different Kula. So her concert is named as
Rama, we're
Akshobhya
having
Bhairava.
technical difficulties on your side for a little bit. Just popping in and out.
Okay, 1 second.
Green Tara, red Tara, white Tara.
So this is predominantly Indo no, not Indo Sino-Tibetan. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me now? Am I back?
You're back.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So we have Tara Devi, and there are multiple forms for Tara Devi. So her concert is named as Akshobhya Bhairava. Akshobhya Bhairava. So the name is Akshobha. Shobha means one who gets agitated. A means it's a negation of agitation. That means one who never gets agitated. Akshobhya Bhairava. So while doing Tara Sadhana, when we are doing Akshobhya Bhairava Sadhana, we basically consider it like this. Once we have mastered Akshobhya, we have mastered ourselves and our emotions. So I have talked about Kurukula, I have talked about Baglamukhi, I have talked about Goratara of Trika system, and now I'm talking about Akshobhya and Tara Devi. So Tara also, she is also an embodiment of Jnana Shakti. Jnana Shakti, okay. So Jnana Shakti means omniscient nature of the god. The people say that once we master Tara, we will become a poet, or these are the descriptions. We will become as good as a poet. Our, you know what, vocabulary or the grammatical prowess will increase. Okay, so that's a different thing. That's not the truth. What I am trying to say, when Jnana Shakti manifests in the material world, it also manifests as Sattarka. Sattarka means logical reasoning. So ability to differentiate between appropriate and inappropriate thing. I'm not saying good and evil. Okay, I'm talking about appropriate and inappropriate. What is wholesome and what is unwholesome? So this clarity of mind can be attained by doing Tara Sadhana as well. Okay, so that is one thing. And Jnana Shakti means ultimate omniscience, the knowledge of the self as divinity. All these things also exist there. But initially, during Tara Sadhana, it manifests as a clear mind where we can differentiate between wholesome and unwholesome thing. Okay, so you are not gonna, when you are having an exam, you're not gonna do binge drinking. You're gonna study. That is the first thing. That is a clarity of mind. People do that and they fail the exams.
I
And
don't.
yeah, so this happens. So simple clarity should exist there as well. That's what I'm saying. So Tara can help us understand this. So what is the application of this? She helps us to become whole during our spiritual journey. Again, this will help us to tackle our emotional turmoils and our mental turmoils in a much more better manner. A much more stoic approach can be attained. When Marcus Aurelius says,
Please bear with us, folks. One of these days, we should have like a commercial break screen.
Yeah, we can do that with our other program.
Oh, he's back.
yeah, so you understand the problem here right now, isn't it?
Yeah, no,
Yes,
at least.
So what did Marcus Aurelius say? That's where we cut off.
Yeah, what was Marcus Aurelius saying?
When he was saying that you can only control what is internal to you and not the external events, so you need to control the reactions.
Well, and the light's back on. Maybe you just
Yeah.
controlled that. Like
So-
maybe you just broke the quote.
Yeah, I'm gonna
So
disagree.
you need to,
Rich guy, so he has that luxury.
yeah, exactly. So the problem is it's easy for him to say these things, but how to bring it into a practical manner, it is very, very difficult. We cannot do that. We are asking a person, yeah, you do this. You have to control your emotions. I am sad. Control your sadness. You are not supposed to show your emotions this way. How is it possible? So
No,
this
I
is the
mean,
problem that comes in.
I understand. I would recommend a more middle ground. Okay, we are sometimes too much is being asked of all of the religions and theologies and philosophies of the world, and so Stoicism advocates, like they say that the peak of Stoicism is if you notice no difference between the death of your child and the death of a cow or the death of a dog or the death of a pet, right? That's what they advocate. What I taught philosophy in university, and I mocked that sentiment. I mean, I identify more with Diogenes, and that Diogenes is, in the Western sense, the breaker of illusions. When there's a lovely anecdote here. When Socrates was delivering a lecture in the Agora, he said that the definition of a man is a featherless biped. And Diogenes, being the a-hole that he is, took a chicken from the marketplace, plucked its feathers out, threw it, at the crowd that was gathering around Socrates. And Diogenes said, "Behold, a man. It's a featherless biped." Socrates is an asshole, but he's right. The problem with philosophy sometimes, and sometimes even theology, is we start at a point where you have an achieved being, an enlightened being, or a mastered individual, an individual has mastered themselves, and they're trying to project the same degree of mastery to other people. But we go about life being different kinds of people. Jake was a different kind of person 5 years ago. Ram was a different kind of person 5 years ago. I was a different person 500 years ago. Yes, I'm that old. But too much expectation. So let's keep it for the sake of the lay people who are practicing, who want to get somewhere but want to take baby steps. You don't have to control your emotions. You just have to be honest about your emotions. Are you sad? Be sad. Are you angry? Be angry. Are you thirsty? Acknowledge that, but be honest about it. Don't mire it up with explanations as to, oh, I'm sad because this. Let's say you lost a friend. They unfriended you because they don't like you anymore, or for whatever reason. Most people are like, ah, they're toxic. That's okay. That's you living in illusion. Why are they the toxic one? Why aren't you the toxic one? Eh? Or it could be that, you know, you just grew apart because you have different perspectives in life. Or maybe you didn't visit them for their birthday 27 times in a row, and you know they got sick of your bullshit. So be honest about it. But the problem again with the West and its you know, the postmodern ideology is everyone is toxic but me.
The woke community.
Yeah, everyone is the problem but me. We're not going to get anywhere with that, folks. We are always going to be the chicken pretending to be a man if we're going to go down that route. First, we have to acknowledge that we are a featherless chicken, and then we can become a man, if you get the jive.
Yeah, only when we accept ourselves, we can understand, we accept the flaws within ourselves. Then only we have a chance to refine it. So, yeah, that's true. And
Going back to, you know, you were told, Ram, that you were aggressive. Yeah.
yeah,
So here's an interesting anecdote for you, because you know I feel like, you know, there is some degree of like, oh, I think they misjudged me. I mean, that's normal, it's human. But did you know that in Tibetan philosophy, when they practice theological and philosophical debates, they're very aggressive against their opponents, to the point where they even do this. They slap their hands in front of your face so your attention is drawn back to the point that they're making, and they literally yell and scream at each other. They even use profanities. I'm talking about Tibetan monks. I'm not talking about regular Tibetan people. Tibetan monks, they do that. The problem with you is you think that you're intelligent, but you're actually a dumb F word. That's how they do it. And why? Honesty. Honesty is a big thing when it comes, because in most philosophical traditions, the thing that keeps us back, or that holds us back from understanding the truth, is the convenient illusions that we wrap around the truth. And in order for us to reach the truth, we have to face those convenient illusions and cast them aside. So, you know, as much as people say, oh, you're aggressive and whatnot, I welcome your aggressiveness. Slap this in front of my face and I'm gonna be like, yeah, I can do the same thing. Let's roll.
yeah. And are you familiar with the IOB technique of Golden Dawn?
Yeah.
IOB, they also
Theoretically, not. I have never practiced any of the systems of the Golden Dawn, but I know it theoretically through books. There's that.
Okay, so I think you might be familiar with blue triangle technique, right?
Mm-hmm.
Blue triangle. Blue triangle is what I practiced during my early teenage. So, what do you think about blue triangle? This is for the audience.
I've only ever read about the practice. What I practiced as a teenager was the, what do you call this? Self-criticism or self-analysis, which I suppose it really isn't a esoteric practice, more so than it is a philosophical practice. So one of the things that the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche advocates in his theory of the Übermensch, the man. We're not talking about the Nazi word here, folks. We're talking about the philosophical concept. Please stop conflating Nietzsche with those people. He is not. He's not.
Do they really correlate Nietzsche with the Nazis?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Oh,
yes, they do. So one of the concepts of his Übermensch concept, of his Übermensch ideology, as detailed in Und sprach Zarathustra, or Das spoke Zarathustra.
Das spoke Zarathustra.
Yes, is that the Overman, or the Superman, is above the superficialities of society, and so one is essentially rendered an outcast not by society but by the self, because the self is critical of everything else, including the self. You cannot be an overman, an alpha male, if you don't criticize yourself above all other things. So this is a special shout out to everyone who's like, I'm an alpha male. before you can call yourself an alpha male, look at yourself in the mirror and say, how small is my wee-wee? Is it really as big as I think it is? No, it's not. That's how you start being das Ubermensch.
I think since you are talking about this, Notes from the Underground is also a
Ooh,
very super.
that's Dostoevsky, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, Dostoevsky. Yeah. So I guess those who have read Thus Spoke Zarathustra will also love Notes from the Underground, because if you want to know how to criticize yourself, you need to read Underground. Yeah. So uh, that is necessary
It is.
to attain. Yeah. So that is one thing. So that is philosophy in practice, what we are talking about. So since this is also about Barden's tradition, I also thought of including certain practices that I have done and how this can be helpful to these people. Okay, so for example, IOB is a technique which is used by Golden Dawn. I read about it in Modern Magic by Donald Michael Craig for the first time. Later in other works as well, I have read about it. So IOP, identify, objectify, banish. So this is the full form. So I will tell you the gist of the ritual. So you have to cast a circle. You have to do the lesser banishing ritual of pentagram, the middle pillar, and all those things, the usual ones that you do. And then you have to identify the flaw within you, the black mirror. So, for example, anger. Okay. So short-tempered nature, anything. So jealousy or greed in what sense? Whether it is money or it's something else. Enviousness is something that we all go through at some point of time. So we need to identify this, and then we need to objectify it, give it a form of a demon or a monster or whatever be the case. If you are much more giving it a demon form, fine. Or if it is an abstract, like some sort of cloud, some dark cloud or
Or
something
you
like
can
that.
turn it into Pikachu, whichever works for you.
Man, Pikachu is too cute.
No, come on.
So many of them will. Okay, my favorite is Charizard. That's a different thing. But some
Hey,
people will.
no talking shit about Charizard. That's all.
Okay, yeah. So after you objectify it, and then you are going to destroy it with a stream of divine light that you are summoned up with your middle pillar ritual, and then using your theme and pointing it and then concentrating the light, destroying it. This is one. So if it helps you psychologically, it's very good, you do it. I have not personally done it much. Okay, maybe a few times, half a dozen times I might have done the technique. That's all. I have not practiced it more.
I mean,
So
the theory is nice. I mean, I will give it as much, but one of the reasons why I've never been such a keen proponent of the theoretical practice of it, as I understand the psychological benefits, absolutely, I do.
yeah.
But knowing people, like I know people, they will use psychological elements of a certain practice to convince themselves that they've done the work without actually doing the work.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
that's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
Since
one common term for that in the spiritual terms is spiritual bypassing.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Spiritual bypassing. Thank you.
okay. So see, whenever I used to practice everything, I have practiced it on my own. Okay, most of the stuff. I never had colleagues to share my experiences, or I never practiced with a lodge or an order, whatever be the case. I have not practiced it like that. I've been a solitary practitioner. So since you are bringing these things up, now I am understanding how it can go that way. It can
Yes. I mean,
misfire.
I used to be a part of a esoteric study group, which also doubled as a coven of sorts. And so also my city has some minor esoteric groups independent of the one that I used to be a part of, and I've observed people and how they are. Also, I used to spend quite a lot of time on Reddit, especially r/occult, and you will see the finest examples of humanity in Reddit. And I say this with a grain of salt. They are the finest examples of humanity that there is. I mean, I thought I was a degenerate, and then I discovered Reddit. And I felt ashamed that my degeneracy was not, up to spec. So, because again, the concept is lovely. I agree. And it is comparable to a lot of practices, whether philosophical or theological or transcendental. But it also feeds into the idea where it feeds into the tendency of the human nature to say, and I may offend, a lot of people in saying this. I attended a 200-hour seminar on this subject. Now I'm an expert at it. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. We cannot mince words here, folks. This is how it is. And then there will be people who are like, I am going to offer this system for the low price of this amount of money, so that you too can be a better individual by imagining that you're cutting up Pikachu and all of your evil aspects and cooking it in a wok, and then you'll be a better person. No, you won't. If you're not going to do the work, no, you won't. These are just visualizations that will help you actualize the things you're running away from. But if you're still going to be, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. The Philippines is a largely Christian country with a large population of Catholics, right? And every Sunday, Catholics go to Mass. And you can't go to Mass without delivering or offering confession, right? Because you can't take the Eucharist otherwise and whatnot. So the thing is, when you go to Mass, you're supposed to embody Christ when you get out of church, right? Now, when I was a kid growing up, I saw my relatives, come out of church every Sunday. And then when they come back home, insert every imaginable expletive that you can imagine that I cannot mention here because it's a podcast, towards each other. Is that how a Christian should act? Right after coming out of church? So when they come into church, they feel the catharsis. Oh, my sins are forgiven. Oh, God has accepted I'm redeemed. No, you're not. You're just faking it. Your orgasm is faker than a porn star's. No, do the work. Do the effing work. Otherwise, it's all bull. I'm sure you'll agree.
Obviously, I do agree with you completely about it. See, this is, I remember reading Satanic Bible by Anton Lee.
Ooh, LaVey, yeah.
So he has mentioned this in the beginning of the book. So he will see all these people coming to confess during Sundays. So he used to work in church, I guess. And then again on Monday morning, they will be binge drinking, chasing horse. Can you believe this? So
such a Christian thing to do.
Yeah. So they will confess their lust and they will pray to the Christ to free them from their lust. And then Monday morning or Monday night, Levi used to see them in whorehouses. So can you believe this? So this is what is happening. So unless and until, like Alex said, unless and until you do the work, so self-introspection is the first thing that we should do. Okay, so this is exactly what we will achieve by passively observing our thoughts. So I think you know Jiddu Krishnamurti, right?
Yeah, I love Jiddu Krishnamurti. I mean, Jiddu, he is no different than Diogenes, because he had the foresight and the honesty enough to say, you know what, hey, you raised me to be your little magical avatar. You know what? There are no effing avatars. F your frickin' order. To hell with your star, whatever, of the East. This is all bunk. This is all fake.
Yeah. So Jake says that we are doing a lot of things. You know what? We are facing our life. We are running. It's a rat race. Basically, the life is a rat race. So in this rat race, have we ever given a small amount of time for our own self? Self in the sense, I'm not talking about self-love by secluding yourself in a room and watching Netflix from morning to evening. That's not what self-love is. Or putting a facial mask. No. Or taking yourself to a spa. That's not self-love.
Or
So
self-love also does not count posting
Instagram reels.
Suggestive photographs on certain websites for people to gawk at and or quote unquote admire. That's self-love, folks. Also, running your credit card until you're deep in debt, that's not self-love.
Yeah. So taking care of the self here refers to understanding our own self. Means, have we ever observed our thoughts, our emotions without judging? Have we understood? So he says that even worship of gods, yoga, I'm not going to yoga. So worship of gods.
Go to yoga. We're being irreverent here. Go do it.
Yeah. Okay. We will go to that. So first God. So how he's saying, when he talks about the worship of gods, he says that it is a manifestation of the thoughts. The notion of the god that we have is a manifestation of the thoughts. Thoughts are created by the self. Okay, our own illusions give rise to these thoughts, these limited thoughts. I call them as vikalpa. In Shaivism, this is called as vikalpa.
Vikalpa, yeah.
Yeah. So, and we are creating the god external to our own self, and they are a reflection of our own flaws. Our, you know what? It's a reflection of our own deep emotional problems, our own fear. That's what God is. At least,
At least
uh,
within the context of, how humans design God. Remember,
yeah, this in God.
going back to Joseph Campbell, who said the gods that you worship are the gods that you deserve.
Mm.
Observe sociologically the kind of gods that a society worships, and then observe the kind of society that arises from the worship of that specific god. It's a
Okay.
reflection. It's a parallel.
Exactly. When you look at Vikings, they were basically, they thought that they will have a seat in the table of Odin in
But
Valhalla if they die in a battlefield. So that's how they lived. Okay, they were basically marauders, and they used to go from one place to another and conquer do battles.
they were
Yeah,
warlike, individuals. So they have a
yeah.
warlike god.
So that's what they did. So their god was a god of war initially. But when you come to Shaivism, Shiva is a god of healing, god of Ayurveda, god of Rasyastra, god of alchemy, god of music, the Rudravina,
And
and
dance.
yeah, dance, exactly. And then god of musical instruments as well, musical instruments. And then again, god of doctors, Vaidyanatha. So he has many faces. So that is the kind of society that Indians were. Even
But
for
but this is not to say that, and to be perfectly fair, because we're being completely irreverent here now.
Mm.
There are aspects of society where Shiva is the god of getting high. Shiva is the god of gigantic dicks. Shiva is the god of cannibalism and all of that.
yeah. It also evolved. It evolved to such things as well. I will go into that. So whenever we are talking about God, JK says that we are creating the God in the image of our own fears, anxieties, and our own imperfections and insecurities, and then we are worshiping it, and then we are fearing it again. So an illusion created by us, later controlled by the illusions. We are controlled by our own illusions. Okay, this becomes a vicious circle. So this is what JK says. So instead of all these creations or the manifestations of the thoughts, why don't we try to do an introspection? Where do these thoughts arise from? The source, the core, from where these thoughts arise, from where these anxieties, these fears, these insecurities, all these things arise from. So let us go back to that aspect. That is what JK is saying. Okay, this is what I say whenever I mention inner awareness or the self-aware consciousness. This is the exact concept that I mentioned. This is what I'm trying to convey. Okay, and also yoga. I'm coming to yoga right now. So you know what, the concept of yoga right now, in our first talk we said yoga pants, music, all those things.
And no complaints about yoga pants, though. Please, by all means, proceed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. So is it serving the real purpose, the current yoga? So we have designed certain things, some sort of physical exercises in the name of yoga. We have modified the classical asanas, and we are doing it, and we are convincing ourselves that by doing these flexibility exercises, we are becoming better than other people.
And it doesn't stop at yoga, folks. It's also found in veganism. It's found in what was that? The carnivore diet.
Yeah.
The thing with society, surprisingly, is they create these convenient excuses about how something that they do or other makes them better than everyone else. And by doing exactly that, they're no better than anybody else. Y'all just gonna be honest, folks. Just be honest.
Yeah, just because you are a vegan, that doesn't mean that you are having a higher moral ground.
Just
This
because
is what
we're
people need to
vegan
understand.
doesn't mean I'm gonna stop eating burgers in front of you. I will.
Yeah, That is also true. See, I'm a vegetarian. Okay, since I'm a Brahmin, I'm a vegetarian. Okay, I have never eaten meat. I don't even eat cakes with eggs. But I don't tell other people why you are doing this, because I have friends. I have Muslim friends who likes to eat beef. Okay, beef. They are lovers of beef or fish or chicken.
It's because they
I
can't love pork.
Yeah, that's another thing. So I have never made fun out of them, or I have never taken a higher moral ground. I have never said this. I have never told them that you are eating animals, you are eating live things. No, I have never said that. Because if I am born in a situation like them, maybe I might have liked the taste of these non-vegetarian foods. I cannot criticize them based on that. Are you getting the point? I have not tasted it, and to be honest, if I get the order of a fish or a non-veg, I don't like it. It's pretty much obnoxious to me at certain point of time. Okay, you know what? There is something called as karuadu. That's a dry fish, so it's obnoxious to me. So, but I don't criticize other people. And when somebody is eating a chicken biryani in front of me, or lemon chicken, all those things, or butter chicken, that is the trademark chicken of India, I don't criticize them. Let them eat.
You're just making me hungry, man.
Okay. Okay. So this is how I observed it, because I'm damn sure that if I am born like them in a different family, in a in a different religion, I would definitely eat it.
Do the same thing. I mean, it all boils down to one there was a certain sociologist, I think it was Camille Paglia, who said that the majority of human behavior is performativism. So we perform not just for ourselves but for other people. And this takes root in earlier feminist ideas, as presented by Simone de Beauvoir. Simone de Beauvoir opined that a woman is not born, but rather she is made into one. And so it
Mm,
follows, if we bring this up to the gender neutral or the sex neutral aspect, no human is born what they are made into what they are. This
mm,
applies to every human being, regardless of what's in your pants, what isn't in your pants. If you're a eldritch entity, I don't care. It's all the same. We are made into what we are. Now, it also follows philosophically that our morals and our ethics are performativist. Our conceptualizations of goodness and evil, of right and wrong, are determined not by our pure, willful acknowledgement and understanding of what is good or what is not so good, but it is determined by a consensus that we don't even acknowledge. This is where, you know, if you look at world religions, there is this concept in Hinduism, there's a concept of illusion, right?
mm,
In Gnosticism, there's the concept of the fake deity, the demiurgos, who
mm.
wraps the world in a sheath of lies. And you have to break away from that, break away from it, break away from illusion, break away from the lies. These are metaphorical guideposts, if you will, to the fact that we, as a human entity, in a human society, with the human condition, have been lied to and perpetuate the lying to both ourselves and other people since
Mm.
day one. And we have to break away from that. Even if we strip away all of the religious practices of their theory and we simply apply the praxis of it, because let's say you can't be bothered to learn Sanskrit mantras, you can't be bothered to enter into a monastery and become a monk. How can you apply this in real life? Strip it all away. Start by being honest with yourself. Why do you do the things you do? Why do you believe the things you believe in? Why are you what you are? That starts there.
Exactly, exactly. I get the point. So when it comes to religion, I'm not talking about religious philosophy. I'm talking about you know what, dogmatic religions. Most of the dogmatic religions are basically death cults. Even in certain aspects, Hinduism also has this idea. Uh, don't consider Shaivism. Shaivism is a different thing. Okay, most of the people are not even aware of these doctrines in India. When you consider any Semitic religion, there is a concept of heaven and hell. So heaven and hell means death should ensue first. Then only you can go to heaven. Okay, so they are promising a heaven, and again in Hinduism, if you come to Puranas, they are talking about heaven and hell. Puranas.
Liberation, and
Ah.
the ignorance, eternal ignorance, and
That is that. They are talking about literal heaven and hell in certain Puranas. That's there. In certain Vaishnavite Puranas, it is that. Okay, let us leave the Puranas. Some people will argue Puranas are not the proper doctrines. Coming back to that, certain people, for example, these dualistic schools of Vedanta itself, like Dvaita Siddhanta or Dvaita Vedanta of Madhava, they consider that they will have a place under the feet of Lord Vishnu after they die by doing certain things in this life. So I don't understand why means you see from an evolutionary perspective we can understand this, but they do believe in these things. Okay, I don't want to go to the big three religions, the Abrahamic faith. I don't want to go into that. Every one of us know how um, how idiotic some concepts can be. Okay, so 72 virgins. Okay, and rivers made of alcohol, I mean wine, milk, and rivers made of water.
milk and honey.
Yeah, milk and honey. So
Yeah, that's it.
you are not supposed to drink while you are alive, only to drink after you die. Are you getting the point here? So a river made of wine, you are not supposed to taste wine while you are alive in this physical body. But why you are doing this? So that you can taste wine
when you die, which is interesting if you consider it, because between the 1400s to the 1700s, there was and I'm going to be very blunt here, because you know what, this is why we're here. This is why we exist. This is the purpose of this podcast. I bring before everybody's consideration Sufism, which is a more mystical aspect of Islam. And one of the cornerstones of Sufi practice, aside from spinning around in circles until you experience a sort of high, if you will, that allows you to experience or to have a transcendental experience close to the divine, is they drank a lot of wine. Look at their poetry. Wine, wine, wine. They compare the grace of God as akin to cool, sweet wine.
once again. Or half an hour. Okay, that's my father. Yeah, you go ahead. So I live in my home, right? This is how you know.
But this is an Asian thing. This is normal. Is everything?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, go ahead. So they used to drink wine.
Yeah, they used to drink a lot of wine, and wine played an integral part in their mystic poetry. And if you consider this is comparable to a lot of mystic schools of thought, regardless of religion, where whatever is established as the norm, whatever is established as the orthodox method, the mystics always break away and do the exact opposite, because they realize, that the norms that are being established is illusory and limiting and dogmatic. But I bring another element here that should be considered, and it is this. When you break away from dogma, you run the risk of also creating your own dogma. To quote Friedrich Nietzsche, he said, "Beware if you fight with monsters, lest you become one yourself. And when you stare deep into the abyss, know that the abyss stares also into you." That's self-criticism right there. That is hands down self-criticism. Because again, every ideology that arises, even in response to an oppressive, repressive, or dogmatic ideology, can, with enough time and enough people and enough politics, become a dogma unto itself.
Okay, I get the point.
I've got something I'd like to share with you guys too, which is let's talk about this Black Mirror, like the Black Mirror that everyone's looking into for hours a day, and then the Black Mirror, and then the mirrors it also exposes through social media, mob mentality,
like that,
and ideologues, groupthink, and then how we read these things in our own internal monologue as we're reading through posts, and internalize the comments, messages, posts that we're reading in real time from different communities. and that the algorithms behind this black mirror then formulate suggestions, not to what is best for us for the cultivation of ourself, or how we want to program ourselves, but it programs us to be more involved with the black mirror. So it goes against our most basic instincts and tries to incite fear, anger, whatever happens to be our personal strongest emotional responses, and that captures your attention. That all being said, how does this black mirror play into this level of introspection work at those levels? Through the individual, through the algorithms, through groupthink, through self monologues and self dialogue whilst reading other people's posts.
Okay, so I need to talk about an incident regarding this. See, over the past few months, there have been a lot of, alimony cases post-divorce. And there is something called as a POXO case in India. Okay, something called as a POXO, where a woman, it also ensures the safety of children in order to prevent them from getting sexually abused. So a woman can also file this, saying that the person has tried to, she can do any kind of allegation, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, anything, and without any formal inquiry, the person can be arrested. That is one thing. So some of the women have literally used this to demolish the life of certain people. So that is one thing. Another thing is alimony after divorce. So there have been multiple suicide of male husbands after divorce in India over the last few months. So whenever I'm reading about these news in social media, especially in Instagram, so it will be completely filled with, whenever I'm reading, it will be filled with comments of women, okay, which is pretty much men hating comments of women,
Misandrist comments.
Yes.
The word is misandrist.
Misandrist comments. So it's pretty much like man hating comments, okay. That part of feminism will be showing up, and
It's not feminism. It pretends to be.
okay, pseudo feminism we can call it as. So then what happens is, there is a female friend of mine. When she reads these kind of posts and the comments, it is anti-feminist or it is male chauvinistic comments. That is what she is seeing, and I'm not able to see those comments. Can you understand this?
Yes.
So how it is influencing? So these algorithms are clever enough to present the situation in a twisted manner. Okay, so how it will affect our mind, how it will affect the society, how it will affect the children. For example, Dahmer story in Netflix. Okay,
Jeffrey Dahmer, yeah.
yeah.
Dahmer.
So Dahmer, what was the name of the show? I watched a few episodes. I forgot. Dahmer story, Monster, the Dahmer story, right?
Monster, yes.
So anyone who is having Netflix can access this, and now these days children are having access to smartphones. I started using smartphone only during third year of my undergrad school, well, during my undergraduation. So now little kids are using this, they can watch these things, okay. And you know what, so how it will affect these people, that's a question. So obviously when I read these comments of these women commenting against that male victims per se, sometimes I get angry. So is this the state of society? Getting the point. The same will be applicable to the females who are reading the comments as well. So how they will feel it different. So it is going to create a disharmony, a conflict between men and women in the future.
You cannot establish control if there is no division.
Exactly.
You cannot create a system where you can sell an agenda if there's nothing to be sold. And the best way to sell an agenda is to create hatred, to sow dissent, to sow discontentment. And I say this, again, because I love that we've gotten to this topic. Because again, we could talk about Barden's Black Mirror and how it relates to magic and whatnot, but magic transcends the limitations and scope of magic, and is really just a praxis for understanding real life. And what's the point of all of these talks if we don't talk about real life, right? So the black mirror that we have today, which is the smartphone, is nothing more than a highly advanced progression of the black mirror that existed 50 years ago, which was the radio. Now, I collect a lot of old radio dramas, and within these radio dramas, you will hear commercials sometimes. Now, some of these commercials are innocuous at best: toothpaste, bubblegum, chocolate, pipe tobacco, cigarettes, what have you, the works, yeah? But then you look to the radio programs that were aired during the Second World War, during the Vietnam War, those time periods. And you will notice that there are some commercials there that go something along the lines of insert this specific people are invading your land, stealing your women, they're terrorizing your children, rise up and protect the motherland, something along those lines. How true this was in relation to whether or not the place that aired this commercial was actually actively being bombed or blitzed is anybody's guess. But let's take, for example, a radio commercial for a radio drama called The Shadow. The Shadow is an occult radio drama that aired sometime between 1946 to 1948. And in one of these commercials, they mention that American soldiers should be wary that Allied troops in their territory, in their land, would be seducing their women. So to prevent that, they should buy Old Spice. Are you scared that your wife might run away? If you're worried about it, buy Old Spice. That's a kind of propaganda. That's a kind of black mirror. Fast forward to 150, 200 years before that, there was newsprint, newspapers, books, pamphlets, what have you. The French Revolution was founded on pamphlets that were, given out to citizens. Of the revolution in my country, where we fought against the Spanish rule, was inspired by these same things. So we're just creating new, more refined, more intricate systems of indoctrination. And the problem with that is whenever we are trying to sell an agenda, we keep it single-sided. We keep it black and white. There's always the enemy and there's always the oppressed. So this is why we cannot have dialogue. And if you think, back then they had dialogue. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. People rioted. People argued with each other. People wrote hate mail. People aired their hate mail on newspapers. Those are called the rag sections of a newspaper. They did. So what we have now on Facebook, where some individual says an opinion, another individual doesn't agree, that existed still then, and it still exists now. And one of the reasons why that keeps on persisting is because we are convinced that it is the responsibility of others to tell us what is true, that it is not our responsibility to find out what is true. So a good chunk of anything that we know, including, I will say this just to be perfectly fair, a good chunk of what is being done in the esoteric system, as well as in education, in academia and everything, is a regurgitation of everything else someone else said. We can neither verify nor confirm that they actually said this, did this, were even there to even actually do it. We just parrot it because it's what's being said. And that's where, again, self-criticism, because nowadays algorithm plays with our brains, like what you said. And I also wanna add to what Ram was saying, because I will say, to be perfectly honest, to be perfectly candid, I am a staunch feminist, but only to a certain point. Okay? Because the manifestations of feminism as manifests today, I don't think that that's feminism anymore. I think that that's a whole other thing entirely. A lot of people will disagree and a lot of people will be offended. But my partner is more of a hardcore feminist than I am or ever will be. And so I told her, in so little words, you're not seeing the other side of the angle here. You're not seeing the extreme thoughts that are being guzzled out by the algorithm. So I showed her, and then she's like, "Why don't I see this? Why don't I read this?" I'm like, "Because that's not what your algorithm is showing. You create another, Facebook account, and then you join these specific groups, and then you compare the comments, the interactions, the ideologies that are being promoted, and you'll realize that whoever is running the system, they're just playing with us. So if there is a demiurge, and I will dare say that there is, and the demiurge is not some magical entity that we cannot see, it's the system set in place in society here and now. The demiurge knows how to play with our minds well.
Exactly. So, yeah, I guess you might be familiar with the American Gods.
Oh, I love American Gods.
So it has a certain amount of truth within it, Mr. World and media. So so basically, to the audience who have not watched American Gods, these are like gods, a war between ancient gods and the modern gods. So what are the modern gods? Social media, technology, globalization, etc. So all these concepts are clearly uh, depicted in that series. It's basically a novel, and it has been turned into a series.
Series. Read the novel first before you watch the series. The book is better than the series.
Yeah, and the series has been cancelled due to some reasons. It's better to go with the book. It's really, really good. So, the god of deception. That's what a manifestation of the god of deception, basically. So again, going to feminism. So feminism started as equal rights in the term of equal amount of pay, equal voting rights, all these things. This is how it started. So now feminism has found many other dimensions as well. For example, there is a certain group of feminism which says that pornography is the highest liberation that a woman can have. She has the right to do anything with her body, and she can sell her body for money. While there are certain other group of feminism which says that pornography is an exploitation of woman's body.
They
So
can't even agree on
yeah,
any single thing.
it's
Actually, no ideology can.
yeah, and from equal rights and equal pay to man hating to an extent where the world should be devoid of any man. It has reached up to that. So feminism has multiple phases. So what I can tell about feminism is having an equality, equal treatment. There should not be any distinction in treatment between men and women, because physically we are different, that's true, but from a cerebral point of view, I don't think there is a distinction. They can also do the same thing that we are able to do. Okay, physically they have a lot of you know what, they are not as strong as us. Biology is different, that's true.
Mentally, I choose the bear.
So yeah, a lot of things, Alex. So that's how I see feminism. And then as Alex told right now, so self introspection is necessary, self criticism is self, I will say introspection is very much necessary. So we should be able to identify what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. So as I said, magic is philosophy in practice. That's the truth. Unless and until we understand this, we cannot practice magic, or magic in the sense of, or spirituality successfully, because many people have told me to include the theory, to include the practical part within the theoretical part itself, not to publish them as two different books. So why it was published as a single volume? Because many of the people will skip the philosophical aspects that is necessary for the practice. Okay, it's like when I started practicing Kabbalah, I was not going through the philosophical aspects of it. So for me, when I was 15 years old, Kabbalah is all about Kabbalistic talismans, Kabbalistic magic. You're getting the point. So books like there are, I don't want to mention the names of the authors. There are books where they are mentioning Kabbalah as a system of magic which can be used as a lower magic, not a higher magic. Higher magic is about union with the divine, while lower magic is mostly materialistic. So this is how I started Kabbalah. But later there are a lot of YouTube videos by many rabbis, many Jewish priests talking about systems of Kabbalah. And then I came across Lorianic Kabbalah of Isaac. then it opened my eyes to a new reality. So then I understood the real philosophical aspects of Kabbalah. Okay, so just like that, people when they come to Shaivism or any tantric practices, either it is a black magic or it is like an anti-cosmic system in Hinduism against the demiurge. Okay, and or else it can be what sexual practices. Okay, so these are the problems. So I have addressed these problems in my book. So again, it all comes to introspection or self-criticism, which is very much necessary in order to identify these flaws in ourselves. So basically, the foundation of Black Mirror is self-criticism, isn't it?
And even it actually involves another crucial element. So let the takeaway from this amazing and highly irreverent podcast be that we cannot honestly, sincerely practice any form of spirituality or ideology unless we are honest with ourselves. And we begin to be honest with ourselves when we criticize ourselves. But, and I say this is a big but, and I also have a big but. There is an element where we begin to be overly critical of ourselves. And that also isn't good. Because anything that is done over much can be destructive. Everything in moderation. Criticize those aspects of yourself that need to be criticized. Keep hold of the criticism where you feel there is no need. Because when the need arises, there are other people to do the job for you.
Yeah, absolutely too. And also to add to what you said is that those who criticize most, especially externalizing their criticism, they're the ones who have the most to criticize themselves more often than not. And also to pull back a little bit, I also want to, clear any air about anything that may have been a little controversial during this talk. Like when we talk about concepts like feminism or men's rights movements or things like this nature, or any ideologue, they're kind of like they're formulated almost through a lens of like divide and conquer. If we divide this demographic, then marketing and other interests can then have a better demographic target to hit. When I've experimented with Facebook ads, for example, there are extremely clear demographics and ways that people are segmented into certain groups: divorced, undivorced, married, income, geography, political leanings. So like I downloaded the aggregate of my Facebook marketing for like myself, because they have EU, US laws for these big social media companies where you can download the aggregate of the data they have on you. And then so they gave me a report of about, and this was years ago, so they more likely have way more indicators than now. And this is just what they present to me. This is what they just show me. Likely they have thousands, tens of thousands of little points.
It's the tip of the iceberg. It's the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. So they had 250 things they listed about myself that they had analyzed and that are dead set, that say things about me. How many things could you or myself list about ourselves right now, for that matter, that like, or people that we know or love, right? So the Black Mirrors know us all too well, and there's myth. I think the more that we criticize others, the more we criticize ourselves, the more we externalize our criticism, the more opportunity there is for misanthropy, which is just anger against humanity itself. The more we focus on external things outside of our personal locus control, the more we get angry with humanity itself. And feminism or the men's rights movements, respectively, and for whatever terminology, those are easier examples because
those are hot topics.
Extremely easy to segment one half of the population and see all the wrongdoings, and vice versa for both ends. And it's also a point of contention and danger because they're two different alternate but also completely valid perspectives on reality. Just how like in Western politics in the United States, we have the right party, the left party, the Democrats, the Republicans, and they've even done brain scans and studies of seeing how the people's brains are completely wired differently depending on their political ideology, depending on how centrist they are versus how far out right or left. How much of that is environment versus like, you know, what how they were at gestation. I don't know. The point is that like there's things balance each other out, but the more that we can accept and honor our differences and see the good as well as the bad, but without and not get angry or fussed about it, the more we can focus on what's in our own personal locus of control, the more we can give space and openness and awareness for others to grow in themselves. This also applies to your family dynamics for society at writ large. But I also want to add what Alex said about the Tibetan monks, like being really direct, being really assertive, is even more valid. Because once we have a balance of consensus, once we know that we're safe to argue, to dialogue, and that we can get our points across without our physical well-being, our mental being threatened, and not in a false sense too, that's been constructed very daintily and very carefully in modern circles, but also not so aggressive that it's ad hominem. When we find that balance, then we can have real societal change. We can have internal change within ourselves, within our family units, within our local communities, and then society writ large. Pretty soon, we're going to have a revolution with the use of artificial intelligence, where we're no longer being programmed by these algorithms solely. So that's not it's not parasocial, where the algorithms here and we're down here. No. We're the ones who are now enabled with AI tools, with the same tools that tens of billions of dollars of research and development were made of. And now those same algorithms are within our control, within our grasp. And very soon we'll have filters or extensions on our browsers where it can translate in real time anything that's on our page and then analyze, compare it, contrast it with other data sources, with other perspectives, and show cognitive biases in real time. So as much as people like to crap on AI or all these things, it's actually going to be one of the greatest purveyors of our personal freedoms from the black mirrors online and potentially the black mirrors in our day-to-day life. If you allow it to, if you elect it to, if you take that opportunity. That's what I have to say.
I'd also like to add that to add on what Jake was saying, the entire purpose of the podcasts that we are delivering is not just an attempt to have a deeper look into the assortment of esoteric practices that comprise the sum total of the human experience, but to create a more profound understanding that these practices are reflective of how we have evolved and how we continue to evolve as human beings. And that these practices, these ideologies, and these philosophies that are espoused are not in any way at all divorced from reality. In fact, they are reflective of reality. They not only criticize reality, but they also support the illusions of reality. It's a two-way mirror, if you will. It's a two-way black mirror where you're the one looking, but the mirror is also looking at you, to paraphrase Nietzsche. And so moving forward with this and all future podcasts, if and when controversial opinions are aired out in the podcast, please understand that we are not here to support any singular agenda. We are not here to decry anybody's worldview, but rather we are here to try and convince people to take a deeper look at why they believe what they believe in, why they hold so dearly to it, and why they feel so strongly that they need to defend it. Because if something is real, and it is real beyond the shadow of a doubt, then it requires no defending. To quote Tyrion Lannister from Game of Thrones, a king who has to say he is a king is no king. And I'll leave it at that.
So yeah, that's that. I have put my thoughts, and it's nice to hear from you as a philosopher and a professor in philosophy, right? So it's nice to hear your perspective, and it's nice to hear Jake's perspective as well. And from a Shaivite point of view, or from an Indian philosophical point of view, I'm able to share the insights that I have. It's nice to have this podcast, and as Alex has said, this is not only about a deeper look into these practices, these esoteric practices. Every esoteric practice, or I can say that every magical system or an esoteric system evolved as a reflection of that particular civilization. So once we understand the nature of that civilization, and we will be able to understand the esoteric practices tied with that civilization in a much more better manner, whether it is Egyptian or whether it is Indian. Indian system is very complex because you can find a lot of subsystems within the so for example, Shaivism, as he has said, Siddhanta Shaivism. I'm also familiar with Siddhanta Shaivism. My mom's family side is much more entitled with Siddhanta Shaivism because they are from Tamil Nadu area, Tamil Shaivism. So that is having a different perspective from non-dual Shaivism that I'm practicing. And then there is Nath Shaivism, and then there is Pashpada Shaivism, and then there is this what to say, Shakti Vishishta Advaitavada, based on Sri Karabhashya, which later turned out to be Siddhanta Shekhamani. That is what you see in Karnataka area, in South India as well. And then there is something called a Shiva Vishishta Advaitavada of Sri Kanta school of Shiva Vishishta Advaitavada, and then Apaya Dikshita. He has also mentioned these Shiva Vishishta Advaitavada, and he has reconciled Vedanta with Shaivism as well through Shiva Advaita. So it is very complex. But when we look at pan-Indian doctrines, if we understand how we lived, so the unity and diversity concept, this will make sense. Okay, and as a philosopher and as well as experiences in different systems and different history, Alex has an idea on how these esoteric systems evolved. So we will continue this talk in the coming podcasts, and we will touch upon the concepts of Bardhan as well as Shaivism and other esoteric systems, and we will examine them from an anthropological perspective and from a philosophical perspective, so that we can understand how these systems evolved. So at the end of the day, we don't have to fight which system is supreme. That is the whole point of this.
Totally.
So and how Alex has mentioned Concordianism in our first podcast. So this is also I think this is also a way to that single path, a universal system where you don't have any dogmas, where you don't have a sense of superiority or inferiority, but what is appropriate, what is wholesome, take that and discard everything that is not wholesome for you. So we hope that we will enter an era where that such sort of esoteric practices are practiced in common, or such sort of
it's more commonplace. And
Yes.
for all those folks who think that, oh, it's a system of no system, this little bugger here stole that from Jeet Kune Do. Yes, I absolutely did, unashamedly so. I stole it from Jeet Kune Do. There you have a laugh at it. Because what is the point of all of this if we can't laugh at the end of the day? And once again, in spite of the technical difficulties that we've encountered in this podcast, which are beyond our control, unless Dr. Ram is secretly Indra, which I don't think he is. Are you hiding something from me?
No.
So in spite of the technical difficulties, thank you very much for taking the time from your busy schedules to listen to our podcast. We hope that in spite of the disparate ideas that have been expressed in the episode tonight, and in spite of the somewhat controversial takes, I say this loosely, that have been espoused or that have been expressed, we have left our guests with a modicum of desire to really take a sit down and be more honest with themselves in how they engage with the world, by first learning how to engage with themselves. And with that, I would like to wish all of you good morning, good evening, good afternoon, Shalom Shabbat, or every other thing in between. And I hope that you will be with us again in the coming episodes. Thank you very much for your time. Dr. Ram, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Okay, so good night and good morning to you, Jake. And I guess it's good night for you, Alex, right?
It's good night for me, yeah.
Yeah, okay. See you soon. Catch you guys.
For
Have
now.
a good rest, guys. Thank you.